Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Cash Flow on the Fly podcast. We're pretty excited today. We have TJ with us. TJ is a former neuroscientist at the Johns Hopkins University. TJ is the founder of ACTS, Decentralized Real Estate, and the author of the book Wealthy Doctor Secrets, the fastest way to build wealth on a doctor's salary, period. In the book, TJ describes how he helped his father, a doctor, grow his portfolio from 0 to 2.1 million in 1 year without relying on advisors, stocks, indexes, rentals, or cryptocurrencies. You can order a free copy of the 275-page paperback book at
wealthydoctorsecrets.com.
wealthydoctorsecrets.com. There you go. Dude, that's pretty interesting. Right immediately right there. TJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, thank you.
Dude, that's awesome, man. So like, can we break that down? Like that's immediately caught my eye right there. So from 0 to 2.1 million in 1 year, how did you do that?
Okay, so there's the lead up to it, and then and understanding the situation, and then there's how we actually did it. Okay, so the lead up to it is that I started out wanting to become a doctor. That's why I went to Johns Hopkins University. My focus was in neuroscience and behavioral biology. I took the MCAT, the medical college's admissions test, and ended up getting a perfect score in the psychology section and a 92nd percentile score in the critical analysis and reasoning section. My scores in biology and in biochemistry, they were all right. They were like 75th percentile, 80th percentile. So perfect, almost perfect. And then, 75th, 80th percentile. I'd known from my understandings in sports and reading the book Mastery by Robert Greene that the best thing I could do was just focus in on my strengths. And my strengths were that psychology and critical analysis background. So I ended up not becoming a doctor and just doubling down into entrepreneurship and marketing, because marketing is psychology and critical analysis combined. Now, I'd been working with a couple of different clients, including a health coach, meditation teacher, a virtual golf clinic, a bunch of different businesses, while my father had made a play where he acquired his private practice from his previous employers. So him and his 5 partners, they dedicated 9 months of their salary to be able to make an acquisition of this private practice. So again, they're making $0 for 9 months while they're trying to get everything up and running. And by the way, they have to pay taxes on that. So while that's happening, my father asked me to come in and do the marketing for him and his practice. And I say, okay, at first I was hesitant about it, but I decided to do it. The marketing starts doing incredibly well. The average pediatric gastroenterologist only makes $193,000 a year. My dad starts making $1.2 million a year. So you'd imagine he's doing amazing on paper, but he still had to pay back his employers, still had to pay back taxes. And at the same time, he starts a divorce with my mother. He has to pay for his lawyers. That's $100,000. He has to pay for her lawyers. That's another $100,000. He has to do an all cash payout, $525,000. And up to this point, he'd focused so hard in his career, he didn't know a single thing about investing. So to everybody else, he's killing it. He's doing amazing. But the reality is that he was tossing and turning at night, every single night, having anxiety attacks. His blood pressure was increasing. He was about to have his second heart attack. He's already had a heart attack 10 years before this. He was about to have the same exact conditions for the same thing to happen. And that's where we start the story out. Because sure, he was up to that point making money, but all of it was going out to pay off every single one of these things. And he knows he's 63 years old. He wants to find a way to retire. So what the book does is detail the strategy that I used for him to be able to clear up capital so that he could start making investments, and B, what were those alternative investment plays that we made for him to leverage that capital that he did make once we were able to find a neat way of cash flowing, like how he could use some of the profits to get the leverage and then start making some plays. So ultimately, the answer to how my father went from 0 to $2.1 million is that he was able to leverage some of the profits that finally came in. And using that leverage, he made a huge process-driven investment, a value add investment that was able, through leverage, to turn into about $2.1 million in value for his portfolio.
Love it, man. How did you know about real estate?
So the reason I got into real estate itself was actually out of necessity. My daughter was born here in Texas. It was a home birth, a natural birth, literally on our bed. And within 24 hours of the birth, we had the worst Texas winter storm. Okay, so with this storm, literally, we had no electricity. We didn't have food. The water wasn't running. We didn't have any heat. We had nothing. Okay. And so I was sitting there. Literally, I had to take the gift wrap from my wife's baby shower, and I was putting the gift wrap into the fireplace so that we could have heat so I could cook something for them. And I said, this is terrible. I never want to go through something like this again. My wife and I had dreamed about and talked about living off grid for a long time. But when that happened, it was a reality. And so what I did was I used my background in competitive analysis, in marketing, in understanding what goes on within markets to find who's the best and who's the worst within any given niche. And I realized very quickly that there was nobody in the real estate space that was accurately serving the off-grid real estate market. There was nobody who was the go-to solution. And so I said to myself, okay, if nobody's doing this, then I simply have to do it. And so I started learning about real estate just from my family. And as I went deeper, I realized, wait a minute, it's not just me who wants this. There's other families who want this too. And I would talk about it on social media, and slowly but surely, families would contact me and I would find out more about what they wanted. So as I had to figure things out for myself, what I would need to take out the right loan to buy land and to do the construction and do the financing, all this other stuff, as I talked to over 65 families to find out what they wanted in off-grid properties, off-grid real estate, I was forced into paying thousands of dollars to learn about land development, learn about investment funds, learn about construction management, learn about every single one of these things. And over time, I formed partnerships, I met mentors, and I met people who taught me everything I needed to know so that I could have that dream and be able to help other people live that dream out too of having off-grid real estate.
So how long ago would you say that your real estate journey began?
This is, I can tell you directly, it was February 12th, 2020.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, because my daughter's born on February 12th. And then, you know, within that 24 hours, that's when that storm hits. And that's when I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, like these are my worst fears realized. You know, I'm barely a father and I've already failed my family here. Let's do something about this.
Wow. So can you break down the off-grid living, off-grid real estate? Can you break a little bit?
Yeah, what does that absolutely mean? So when I talk about ACTS, the real important thing about ACTS is that we provide families with everything that they need to move off-grid once and for all. And so I want you to really think about, if you right now, Satch, you thought, okay, what would I need for my family? Okay, we're trying to meet every single one of those needs. So number one, we provide families with an average of about 10 acres of land with zero restrictions, fertile soils, plenty of water, plenty of sunlight, very good weather patterns. In addition to that, there is a distance requirement. So we try to find land that is a very nice distance from cities. It's not too far away from cities where you can go in if you need, but at the same time, you're outside of the hubbub of most cities. Okay. Most people who want to live off grid, they don't want to be in that. But if they need to go to the grocery store, they want to be able to go to the grocery store. We also build out the actual home for each one of the people who are buying a piece of real estate. We install all of the utilities. So solar panels, wells for your own private water, septic tanks to be able to take care of, you know, bathroom duties, walk-in cooler freezer because you need a place to store all of your meats or all of your produce that you might grow. We then build out all the fencing for the livestock, the cattle, the chickens, the goats, whatever it might be. And we even provide space for an A-frame cabin so that either your friends can come in, your family can come in case of emergencies, or you can even rent it out through Airbnb And the pricing of that Airbnb on average, if you look at Texas, that's able to pay off the majority of the mortgage.
Wow.
Lastly, we provide every neighbor with access to the country club that's built in the middle of it, because you need to know your neighbors if you want to truly survive off grid, right? You can't just do it all on your own in the nuclear family. If you, as the dad, you get injured, what are you going to do to provide for the children? It's important to have that infrastructure. So we provide a country club where you can have homeschooling for the kids. You have an arts and crafts kitchen. You've got a great place for holidays for people to be able to talk with each other and hang out, kind of like a Thanksgiving, the Pilgrim Thanksgiving, that idea. And we even provide things like a gym and a shooting range, right? So that, again, there's camaraderie amongst the men. If you have strong men, you're going to have strong families. And when you have strong families, you have better living. Lastly, we provide experts to come in and show these families how to actually use their homestead, how to farm, how to manage the produce, how to manage different things that might come up, whether it might be financing or anything else. So again, the main point of what we provide is everything that you need to fully move off grid once and for all.
Is there so taking it one step back, would you go when you're looking for these areas to buy this? You're saying one person may typically have about 10 acres, right?
Yeah.
How many acres are you locating, like say 50 acres at one time, taking over those 50 acres and then slowly start selling them and doing each one of these projects, or how does that really work?
That's a great question. And that's the beauty of the Axe business model and what's so special about what we do. So what we do is we look for ranches that pretty much nobody can afford unless they're elite individuals. We're talking about ranches that are 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 million dollars that have a minimum starting point of 500 acres. But we're looking at lands that are 1,000 acres. There's even one that's 6,000 acres that we're looking at. We acquire those ranches and we subdivide those ranches so that families can live there. The nice thing about what we do is we're actually able to go around something called platting approval, which for anybody listening, that basically means that you have to submit papers into the government and usually can take 420 days to get those papers fully approved. But with our process, because we're focused on off-grid living, we're able to get things done in 50 days. So again, wow. Average is 420. We're able to get things done in 50 days. And whereas everybody else has to pay for infrastructure like electricity poles or asphalt roads or sewage pipes, we don't have to do that because we're focused on an off-grid market. So to answer your question, yes, we are buying huge ranches, huge pieces of land that are either farms or they were wildlands or things like that. And we're subdividing them into these beautiful ranch packages that come with everything these families would need.
Got it. And can we talk numbers?
Yeah, we can absolutely talk about numbers.
Like what's the average cost for like one, like if I want to take my family to a 10-acre piece of land that you're going to build for us?
Yeah. So on this first property that we're looking at, where families can customize their own ranch. So it's not as simple as it's just this one thing. For the most part, with the custom ranches, we're averaging somewhere between $800,000 to $1.2 million. So higher end package would probably be around $1.2 million for a ranch that if you try to do it on your own, it would be $3 to $4 million, by the way. Like that's the nice thing about this model. It's scalable such that because we bought so much land at once, we're able to come in far under what the market would usually price. And because we already have the partnerships with the home builders and the solar and everything else, it ends up being a group discounted deal. Does that actually make some sense?
Yep, sure.
So it ends up being much easier. In addition to that, you don't have to deal with banks again and again. So if you try to do it, you'd have to get a loan for just the land. You have to get a loan just for the construction. You have to get a loan just for the solar, a loan just for the wells, all of that. With what we're doing, you're able to get it under one simple, normal, everyday mortgage, right? That's a big, huge game changer for these families. So again, we're looking at on average somewhere between $800,000 to $1.2 million. That averages out somewhere to around $5,000 to $6,000 in monthly payments, something along those lines.
Got it. Man, that's definitely very interesting. This is the first time I've heard of this until I met you. I'd never heard of this prior to this. Obviously, you think about it, right? You think about moving off grid and all that, but never really actually take the necessary steps to like figure out what does it take to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not alone. Most people, I met people, they've been in real estate 20, 30, 40 years, literally 30, 40 years. And they have either never thought of something like this or they've never heard of something like this. There are models that prove that this is a very viable concept, very, very viable concept. For example, one of the members of our board of advisors, he's part of a company that it's very, very similar. It's just it's not exactly off grid. Okay, they still install the electricity. They still have sewage pipes and they still have regular water lines, right? But what they do is they buy huge pieces of land, they subdivide it. You can buy 2 to 6 acres. They've been able to take $250 million of investor capital, acquire $750 million worth of land, and flip it for over $3.5 billion with a model very similar to Axe. And now with what I'm presenting is that we're taking that same model that is supercharged and we have lower overhead costs and we can go faster because we don't have the plating approval that they had to do. We don't have to do the instructions and the installations and construction that they had to do.
Wow. Dude, I want to take this conversation over to what we were talking prior to the podcast, which is the niching down into like a couple layers down, right? Because you are very deep into the medical field, right? You're in there with doctors, and so let's talk about that. So you went in that direction because of your dad, right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'd been working with a bunch of different companies, and I'd helped them out, gotten success with them. But the biggest success by far was just having worked with my father. It was so much nicer working with them that I decided to just double down on private practices. And that's why I now have Private Practice Profits. That's my agency where we help private practices become the #1 within their given market niche. This is an investing podcast. So let's really understand why it's so critical to understand your niche and to really niche down. This is the real investor side of it. Okay. So one of the strategies that I use, whether it's in marketing or it's investing, is I use something called the STAR principle. And you can read about the STAR principle by literally picking up the book, The STAR Principle by Richard Cook. Cook is spelled Koch. Richard Cook is an investor who used to be a consultant that was able to turn $5 million of starting capital into what is now $1.4 billion of capital off of less than 25 investments. He's in the venture capital world where on average, people invest into 10 different companies and will only have one that's successful to make back all of their money. So usually venture capitalists, they only make a 10% success rate. He's batting 50%. So he makes his investments 50% of the time. He's making more than 16 times a return on investment. And the reason he's able to do that is because of the STAR principle, which applies to this concept of niching. So what is the STAR principle? It's very simple. He looks for and he only invests in companies or businesses that are the #1 within their given market niche. And #2, the given market niche is growing fast by at least 10% per year. So with regards to the question of niching down, why is it so important to niche down? Well, when you niche down, you can ensure that you are the absolute #1 within that given market niche. When it comes to anything that I do, I make sure, can I be the absolute killer in that market niche before I even start doing anything? So when I wrote the book, Wealthy Doctor Secrets, it's because I already know what's going on with all other books out there for doctors for investing. They're a complete joke. Their strategies take 20 to 30 years to play out. And at best, they're going to only make you meh money, especially when you take into account inflation. In fact, I can provably show that with inflation, they're not really making you any return. But Wealthy Doctor Secrets, it's the best book. Private Practice Profits, I've made sure that I am the best in the world at helping doctors do one thing: become the #1 rated practice on Google within their specialty, within their city. If you can become the #1 rated practice on Google within your specialty, within your city, you can make more money than anybody else. With Action Centralized Real Estate, we are the #1 in the world in off-grid real estate. There's nobody else who even comes close. And you could sit there and say, yeah, because there's nobody else. And I'd say, exactly. I'd say that's my point. So why is it so important? Again, it's to be that #1. That #1 spot is just, it's so important.
And does the star principle, the word star stand for something, or the star principle is those number two being the #1 in the market niche, and #2 have the niche that is growing 20%?
That's a great question. It's simply a nickname so that you can understand, like, okay, like this is like a shooting star. Like this is a really, really good business. And again, this can apply to anything, right? This can apply to anything. I have used this in cryptocurrencies. For example, I found a cryptocurrency. It was the #1 within its given market niche of government contract exclusivity. So this was a crypto that was the only one to have a military contract for data management. And I knew that that was a very important issue. And I found the evidence for that. So I knew, hey, it's going to be a star principle because the market's going to grow, right? They added on the Air Force, the military, this, that. And I just knew, okay, it's going to do very well. And I made a 10x off of just that investment. But you can do that, for example, when talking about real estate as well. Like, so if we're talking about apartment complexes, you can ask, okay, is this apartment complex going to be the #1 within its market niche within that city? So maybe it's the only apartment complex that is a luxury apartment complex. I'm making it up, but it's it's the best in that city for luxury living. Or maybe it's the only apartment complex for people who are ages 25 to 35, right? That's a great market niche. And you can consider those things before you make that investment. And applying it to you, you can say, okay, the reason I'd like to go with Satch is because he's the best in the world at helping pilots who are interested in real estate but don't want to be active investors. Sure, there's other people who talk about the transition from your piloting career to becoming an active real estate investor. But what if you don't want to do that? Well, now I can listen to Cash Flow on the Fly. I can listen to Satch, and I can follow what he's doing, and he's going to help me out in my career.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I tell everyone, right? Like even though people may look at me and say, well, you left aviation to do this. And I'm saying, yes, but I'm not doing this so you follow the same path. I'm out here doing this so you don't have to, right? I'm out here doing all this full time so that you don't have to be involved in any of the active stuff in the syndication or multifamily, right? You can continue flying, doing your thing, and let me take care of that.
Exactly.
Dude, that's awesome, man. We were talking about the importance of diversifying your portfolio prior to the show. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, absolutely. So that goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about with regards to doubling down on the absolute winners. What we're discussing here is basically the 80-20 principle injected with some steroids and then applied again and again and again.
Can you break down the 80-20 principle for someone that maybe listening, maybe doesn't know?
Okay, so the 80-20 principle might be the most important concept of all of investing. It might actually, okay? You can apply it, #1, to the usage of your time, but it's also important when wanting to find winners. What the 80-20 principle states is that 20% of competitors will produce 80% of results within a given market. So we could be talking about salespeople. You have 10 salespeople, 2 of them are going to do 80% of your sales. We could be talking about stock portfolios. You have 10 different stocks, 2 of your stocks are doing 80% of your profits. Okay. So, why is it that you don't want to diversify? Well, because by definition, if you're diversifying, if we know the 80-20 principle applies to everything, you are 80% of the time investing in losers. That's why. Why are you wasting your time with the average when there are top performers in any given thing? The reason Richard Koch is able to stand out is because he just doubles down on the winners again and again and again. When you're stuck diversifying your portfolio with the whole market, when the market goes up and the market goes down, it's like, congratulations, you're just along for the ride. And the reason people are told that, they're told this lie of diversify your portfolio, is because most people who want to sell you something know that you don't know anything about investing. And so it's easy to just say, oh yeah, just diversify your portfolio. That way you don't have to learn anything. But the truth is, in this world, you want to do well. You really want to, go above and beyond what everybody else does. You have to put in just a little bit of work. And that means putting in the research to just find the winners and double down again and again and again on them. If you look at Warren Buffett, his investing strategy, there was times where he would literally put 50% of his entire Berkshire Hathaway portfolio in 1 or 2 companies. He'll put it just into Coca-Cola. He'll put 50% of it just into Apple, whatever it might be at a given time. It's because he knows what the winners are. So you want to identify the winners and just go with those things rather than keep with the diversified market, which is not going to outperform the inflation rate. If you look at the inflation rate, it's the same thing as the quote unquote diversified portfolio market. And so you're not really going to be making any money whatsoever.
Dude, that was very powerful there. I'm trying to wrap my head around what you just said and break it down different and look at it from different angles. So say someone, I think people think of diversifying from different lenses, right? Some people may think of diversifying as in I'm investing in real estate, I'm investing in oil, and I'm investing in some other tech stocks. All right, so they may think I'm diversifying in different sectors, right?
Yeah.
Some other people might say, and up until now, I mean, you tell me what your opinion is on this, right? But if I'm all in on real estate, right? I'm all in on multifamily. But my thought of diversifying is I'm investing in 4 different syndications. Instead of putting $200,000 into one syndication alone, I'm using 4 syndications, $50,000 in each, because just in case one sponsor does a little bit less, maybe his deal doesn't go as well as the other one. I'm considering that diversifying, but I'm diversifying within the one small niche.
Yeah, exactly. You're still within your wheelhouse. For you would see that as diversifying. That's not exactly the same as what I'm saying, because you're still within your wheelhouse, right? The issue is you all of a sudden starting, let's just say hypothetically, you didn't know anything about oil. All of a sudden you're just I'm going to put money into oil for no other reason than I should just not be in the thing that I'm really good at. That's the issue. That's what people think. They straight up say, I'm going to just do it for the sake of doing it. If you do know what you're talking about with oil, then go ahead. There's no issue with that. Maybe that's what you should do, right? But that's just not how people do it.
That makes sense.
Would be horrified by actually what you're talking about. Most people, they would be like, oh, he's going all in on real estate and he's putting it into these 4 syndication deals. Oh no, I can't do that.
So I see what you're saying. So you're and I do remember in the past hearing sort of your approach on the diversifying, and I always kind of put the different lens on it, right? And I just sort of had conflicting thought process on that, because I never heard what you just said right now, that it just applies to when people are making decisions based on something they don't know, right?
Yeah.
And that's when it really the diversifying thing just becomes just a myth, because it's just like you said, you don't know anything about it. You're just putting your money in for the sake of not putting it in the other thing that you're investing in that you really believe in, right?
Exactly. Exactly. If it was for doctors, it would be like, my dad is a pediatric gastroenterologist. So for anybody who's listening, that he's a kid's stomach doctor, right? So, him just being like, well, I need more patients, I need more money. Let me just start doing like feet for no reason. Like, why are you doing that? That doesn't make sense.
Right, right,
And
right.
people can double down again and again and again on things. They're just scared to. They're really, really scared to. They think something bad's going to happen when instead you can do so much more. Again, this applies to everything. I used to do marketing for everything. I get almost every other day somebody and their mother going, TJ, do the marketing for this thing. And it'll be something completely unrelated to private practice physicians. And I go, no, the reason people want to pay me more is because of the fact that I literally only work with them, period, and nothing else. When people hear that fact, they go, wow, this guy must be really good at that thing.
What are your thoughts on that? So like you're saying essentially you turn down people that request that you work with them on a specific thing that is not like private doctor offices, right?
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Private practices, private medical practices. Am I saying it right?
Either way, I know exactly.
You know it. Yeah. So you turn them down, right? That's not your specialty. You're saying that's not my specialty. I'm not working on that. Would you take it one step farther and say, for example, me, that I work with airline pilots, is someone that is not an airline pilot and wants to invest in my deals, say, no, only airline pilots invest with me? Or
that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like put the same thought process on different things.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. So I have things geared towards just doctors. I'm not going to physically, literally sit there because the investments, they're limited partners when they work with me, right? So it doesn't matter. They're limited partners, right? At the end of the day, when we're talking about investments, there's not really a difference. However, it is going to be a difference in terms of how they're going to be able to interact with everybody else. My marketing is focused on doctors. Could it apply to other high-income professionals? Sure. Technically speaking, if you have an airline pilot they're higher up in the game, they're doing very well, they would make just as much money as what we're talking about here in Wealthy Doctor Secrets. I'm not necessarily focused on them. And they're going to feel a little bit weird when, for example, if you buy my book, I have a bonus. It's worth $25,000. And that bonus, it has a lot to do with doctors. It's basically an online forum where doctors can talk with other doctors about what it's like to be a doctor and the struggles that they deal with, the emotional burnout that they deal with, things that they might be seeing and how they can help each other out, right? That's one of the things that I have on the back end. So I'm sure if a pilot were to buy my book, even though the concepts perfectly well apply to pilots too, okay, they feel slightly out of place. But hey, at the end of the day, if a person wants to buy into actually centralized real estate and help us build this where we know we can take it, then I'm not going to say no to them. It's just, be aware, like, hey, it's not all of this is going to be geared towards you. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. 100%. That's a pretty cool thing you got on your book, man. Dude, that's awesome, man. TJ, this has been really amazing having you today on the show. We should have you back again once you guys have completed quite a few projects and we get to talk, really go in depth and like see some results and stuff like that. I'll be really curious to know more about that.
I would love that.
And dude, how can people find out more about you?
So if you enjoyed this conversation, if you'd like to find out the secrets in Wealthy Doctor Secrets, you can go to my website, wealthydoctorsecrets.com. Again, wealthydoctorsecrets.com. On there, I'll give you a free copy of the 275-page book. And in addition to that, I'll give you the audiobook read by me. I'll give you a 50-video online course that was filmed here in studio. I also have some wealth calculators, some due diligence checklists, and I have a very special bonus. I have that extra form as well. We were just talking about it. Technically, it's for doctors, but you can join along as well. So again, wealthydoctorsecrets.com.
Dude, love that. Love it. So much value, TJ. Thank you for being on the show, man.
Thank you so much for inviting me, man.
Yo, see ya.